So we always hear a lot about lifetime value and how many times you can see people and that dirty word called discharging people. There's a lot of chat around in the industry. Always, there has been since Jesus played in the under-8 soccer team, and there always will be. But one team that has got it absolutely down pat, we're going to talk to the business owner right now. Just want to firstly put a big welcome to Jarrett Wood from Longevity. He's been with us before, and we're jumping in for another podcast. Huge, really great feedback from the first one, mate. So thought we'd jump in with a bit of a different topic today and about how the unique approach you guys in your team have towards lifetime value. So I'm going to just bomb you with some questions and try and get some of that goodness out, and the gold nuggets that you guys have, and for everyone's benefit. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, let's do it. Sounds good.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. And that's the thing I love about this. It was like, can we do another podcast? You said yes, and then I just jumped on and you said, what are we talking about? And I said, I'll tell you in a moment. So there's the topic, heads up for you. So Jarrett, here's the thing. I mean, we always hear about people wanting to get people better as soon as possible. That's obviously always our aim, right? We're trying to get people better. People come to us and they're in pain, and we work with them acutely, or they've got a chronic illness. We're working with them to work with a chronic disease and things like that. We always hear a lot about lifetime value of a client. For more than a decade now, I termed it as SPEC, so sessions per episode of care. And we sort of went through that process. In fact, I think you know this, but a lot of people don't. I tried to bring that into a lot of the leading practice software more than a decade ago, and they didn't really want to worry about that type of reports because it wasn't needed and wasn't important, et cetera. And then they went ahead and, about 5 years later and called it PVA, for patient visit average. So anyway, it's always will be spec. But we want to be able to look at this whole approach where some people, I guess, struggle to get their patient numbers up. They might only see them 2 or 3 times. What's the unique selling source, marketing approach, relationship? Like, what is it about you guys that means that you're spec? People come and see you and they never actually leave. By the way, for everyone listening, this is not about overservicing, and this is not about see you next week bullshit of past allied health providers in bygone eras. Okay. Jarrett, let's start chatting.
Let's clear that up. We don't want to get trolled.
No, we're not. And I can tell you right now, categorically, you guys do not do that. But talk to me about the approach you guys have when people come and see you, when they first come and see you and stuff. Talk me through that.
Yeah. So it starts with a personal philosophy, right? So my early life experience was losing all of my grandparents to lifestyle-related disease. All right. So when I went through university, what exercise physiology was going to be was this amazing new preventative focused medicine. That's the language that was used at the time. This is like 2001, sort of 2005. Yes, we could treat, yes, we could manage, but it was actually mostly focused on prevention because lifestyle disease was the theme of the time, right? And so that sat really well with me and when I started practicing, it sat really well with me because I didn't want to say goodbye to clients if I didn't have to. And I also didn't want to, I want that personal relationship, right? So for me, it was always a matter of what's next. So I sort of meshed personal background, my sporting background with I want to work with people long term. It's just what turns me on. What makes me want to get out of bed in the morning. Yeah. So how do we do that? And what we do is we treat you for the thing that you come to us for first, but then it's just a simple question of, well, what's next? And if we have the exercise physiology, the exercise science, and the personal training skills, which we mentioned in the previous podcast, there's always somewhere to go. Because my exercise should be a foundation of health for everyone. It's in our vision. I think it should be in everyone's vision. And I think the medical model of treat, see you later, overall doesn't work. Especially
it's fundamentally broken, let's be completely honest about it, right?
Yeah. And it's also doctor-centric. It's practitioner-centric. It's not patient-centric. You're the one that carries your scans around to every doctor and, they're not sharing it. And, my health record hasn't really worked and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And let me dive in on that for a bit, because I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head. The model in many respects is broken, right? It's always been, you feel sick, you go to the doctor prescribes you a pill, you go home, you take the pill. If you don't feel better after 5 days or whatever, you go back and see him or her, right? That's sort of always been that whole, you get sick, you treat it, you get sick, you treat it type mentality. But ultimately, we're in a situation where we've got an avenue to prevent so many things, illnesses, diseases, states, right? Why wouldn't we be actually out there doing that? But if we wait until people have all of these symptoms and all these conditions, then all we're doing is feeding every single person back into the old model that we know is broken.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's no, your treatment gets so much better when you get to know somebody. So like if you're a family, I don't have this, but if you're a family that, you're still seeing the GP that your parents saw, there's a level of care that he could provide or she could provide that you won't get if you didn't have that. Like that history, that understanding that you get even at 15 minutes at a time, which, let's face it, that's not great either. But
eight and a quarter minutes is the average time at the moment for a GP visit, but let's not go there. Yeah,
but they've had years to get to know you, right? And so I started thinking like, well, if we want to compete with other health professions, if we want to do something different, like we get a whole hour, that's a huge advantage. So why don't we? So
you guys do that with all of your clients, don't you?
What was that? So the time.
So time-wise, how do you run your consults?
Yeah, 60-minute is the default. We'll make exceptions, but there needs to be a good health or strategic reason to go to a shorter session.
Yeah,
and that's one of the fundamental things.
Clear as well. You guys don't have this whole initial assessments of 45 minutes at $20 more than a standard rate of half an hour or something like that, do you? You just have your one set time frame. Primarily.
Yeah. And it's just a starting point, right? Like a starting point for some people might be, well, I think I can fix what you've got today, and then our work here will be done. That could be your default starting point. But our default starting point is, let's start working with you as if we're going to treat you for 40 years and go from there. So we don't make assumptions, but that's a sort of the default. And then when we start digging into the history, then we work back from that, as opposed to going like, can I fix it today? Can I fix it on the spot? And then maybe not setting up a really good plan and helping someone, particularly who's got something that cannot be treated in one session, which is 99% of people we see, probably more. You're starting from the right place. You're starting from this will take some time to work on. Let's set up a plan.
How do you think people's mentality is in regards to giving information out in that first section as well? Like, do you find people are really happy to give away all the keys to the castle and all their medical secrets, or do you find that it takes a little bit of time to scratch that itch?
Yeah, it takes time. I mean, you can build the skills and get a little bit faster at it, which was touched on the other day in your conference. But who are we? What medical services, if we consider ourselves competing with other medical services, who are we competing with? We're competing with the 8.5-minute GP consult.
Correct.
So what if you gave like 10 times the quality, but you gave it in an hour? Like, what if you took time to listen to somebody more than anybody ever has, even if they're a specialist, right? Because they might have more years of degrees and more qualifications than you and more highly skilled if you want to break it down, but have they ever spent an hour listening to the patient? And so it's one of your advantages. Like for me, to get 2 or 3 hours a week with some people, if that's the appropriate course or that's what they want to do because we're working on particular things, like what an advantage. I get to know them better than maybe anybody does. Yeah. For some people, I know them better than their partner. Better
than family. Yeah. So how do you guys approach it? I mean, obviously, one of the biggest bugbears I have with the industry is we hear it all the time. People go, so when a Medicare client comes in, blah, 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 or they turn around and say, when I have to deal with NDIS or work cover, etc., we tend to find that a lot of people want to box clients into, you are a Medicare client or you are a workers' comp client. So therefore we come with preconceived ideas about what they might be doing, what they might be saying, what type of framework we now have to treat them within, etc. How do you guys go about sort of dispelling that?
Just treat everyone the same. If you want the one sentence answer, treat everyone the same. So as I said before, like if our default is like, we're going to set this up as if we are going to work with you for a lifetime, right? If that sounds a little bit over the top, what we know for sure is they need an exercise plan for the rest of their life, no matter who they do it with. There's nobody on the planet that you're going to say 0 exercise forever. That's going to be the best thing for you. So there's going to be something that they need to do. So even if they're not working with you, you're setting up a default plan that you'll need to exercise for the rest of your life. Let's start making small behavior changes that start to introduce the exercise for your condition, for the time that you're at, but also we're thinking long term. We're not going to do something now that burns you out in 4 weeks. We're not going to do a behavior change now that overloads you or stresses you or creates too much turmoil in your life. And so when you start operating from there,
is huge for you guys, because I know that the way you guys do it is really special. But when you look at the outcomes of that, the outcomes that you get for the client are phenomenal, first of all. If we bring it back to like a business practitioner type situation as well, what's your average spec over a 12-week period at the moment? So how many times would a team member of yours see each person over, say, a 12-week period?
Well, it's 12 or very close to 12. Like we don't
like
even
11
point
something,
it's
right?
It's sort of a redundant measure for us because it's kind of, again, the expectation is 12. And if we discharged a client, which we don't even use the term discharge, if a client chose that they don't need our services anymore, we would check in with them the week after when they're not training with us and say, how did you go? How was that plan? And we'd be checking in with them for weeks afterwards. Were you able to implement the plan at your own gym? Were you able to do the walking that we discussed? Are you swimming like we mentioned? And we just continue. So we're still servicing them outside of it.
Absolutely. Now, by taking that approach as well, what you're actually doing is you're creating that complete framework. So you've got a journey in place of what they're wanting to do. You're getting to that deeper level. You've got emotional hooks in place. You know what they're ultimately wanting to do. If they come in with 4 visits or 5 visits under Medicare, fine. They're using those. They're having their rebates, etc. They're not getting it for free, but the relationship you have in place and the accountability you have in place, you actually continue seeing them as if they're just like a normal paying client, which they become very quickly and ongoing, right?
Yeah. So a very common thing we might do is say to someone, well, look, if you're ready and you'd like to have a go at doing this program by yourself, why don't you pop in at this time? Because we're often in public gyms. Why don't you pop in at this time? I'm in the room at the same time. I'm working with someone else, but at least someone you trust is around, and have a go at it. See how you go. And I think all of us know in our hearts, if we really check with ourselves, when you give a client a program, if you got to be a hidden camera and watch them try and implement even the best program and the best EP ever, it's tough. If you've never exercised before and don't understand even how to set up a pin loaded machine or a band or something like that, it is a lot to remember, a lot to understand if you're picking that up at 50 or 60 years of age.
Yeah.
And I think we forget that a lot. That's what are we asking people to do here? Are we asking a bit much? It's not just like popping a pill.
Yeah.
It's a pill that takes a lot of setup.
Yeah, there's a lot of setup. You've got a lot of training in and around this of how to work this, what to say. We've got perfect consult pathway measures in place. We set up the relationship. We make sure that we're using the right words. We're working on the limbic brain, which is obviously the emotional part of the brain that actually makes decisions. We make sure that certain words and phrases are in place so that we get the right limbicity in place, to use such a word. We've been talking about that a lot lately, and we're getting the right brain chemicals with your oxytocin and serotonin. We don't box people into into a, you're a Medicare client, or they're only going to do this, or they only want to. We treat everyone the same, create that long-term, longevity type pathway, to use your own business name in that situation. And as a net result, you have a creation of a system where your lifetime value is exceptionally large, right? Your average consult's about $140, I think, off memory. Is that right?
Yeah, across the team, it's close to that. It's probably a touch under that, but yeah, across the team, that'd be where it would sit.
And you sit there and you go, like, I don't know of any other, allied health professionals that are doing that type of work and seeing people at least 11 times every 12 weeks ongoing. I mean, you don't have to do a lot of new patient generational work, because, I mean, you've got 19 therapists or whatever it is, and you've had huge amounts of growth, more than 10 new team members in the last 10 months, which is phenomenal. But by having a really good retention strategy in place and creating that relationship, you have people that never want to leave, because you're constantly doing more, helping more, getting better outcomes for the patient, which ultimately is a very, very smart business model for growth as well.
Yeah. And as I said, it just comes back to personally, like, that's what I'm excited to do. And, when we start to feel good, when we're over a particular condition or something, we just shift to performance or prevention. And we just explain that to the client, and they choose whether they'd like to continue with that or not. Well, that's how, I just think that's what we should have done.
Everyone wants to get away from something. That's the first type of goal. They want to get away from death. diabetes, retinopathy. They want to get away from pain or whatever it is. Then they want to go towards something, and it might be to be able to play footy with their child again or something like that. But then they get onto that contributionary type goal, right? Which is that performance type thing. They start to go, actually, I want to do the park run. Never been able to do that. I want to do city to surf. I want to be able to, whatever it is. So you literally take them through that whole pathway that we've always known as the 3 steps for how people set their own goals. So it's very, very smart.
Yeah. Mate, and I think, we
final thoughts, mate. Hit us with it.
1 second.
Yeah.
If we talked at the start about I'm sensitive to over servicing, because I know people could criticize that if they don't understand how our model works and how a lot of it's private. It's not got anything to do with the health rebate or anything like that. But what about under servicing? Like, do we question ourselves enough as an industry about, is 1 or 2 sessions enough to make a difference to someone who has diabetes, who's got lifetime issues, 30, 40 years to get to this point, and in 2 sessions, we could turn their life around? And I'm not saying everybody couldn't do that, but I couldn't. Yeah. And I think I'm okay.
But I love that, because I find that you guys have taken that and you've changed your model and you've controlled the controllables and made a big difference and changed your framework, and you're getting massive results from it. I find there's a lot of health providers that get to that resistance point, that perturbation is put in place, but they don't break free. They turn around and fall back into, but I've only got 5 sessions, or, but I can only have this, or, but I'm only told I can do, and they probably listen to that rhetoric too much without looking for the opportunity of what can I do different? Where's the opportunity here to do something different, break the mold and put it in place so I am getting the best patient outcome all the time. And funnily enough, that also is going to help the team and the business as well. So everyone wins. And I think that's a big crucial part to put in there and understand that you guys have taken that opportunity, you've found the gap, and you've been innovative to make it work, whereas a lot of people haven't. And I'd encourage people listening to this to go and put in place exactly what Jared's saying and doing, because the benefits are there for every single part of the equation.
Yeah, and most importantly, it would fall down around itself if it didn't get results for patients.
Correct.
It would be self-selecting, that the patients would be opting out and discharging themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Mate, let's leave it there. As always, it's awesome to chat with you, mate. I really, really appreciate it. Go forward, keep getting some awesome patient outcomes and keep growing. And we hope to hear from you again very soon.
Thanks, Jace. Good to chat.
Thanks, man. Hey guys, thank you very much for listening to another episode of the Profitable Practice Podcast. I would love nothing more than for you to be able to leave a review. I get so much joy out of listening and reading the amazing things that you guys say about this. So please subscribe to our channel, leave a review, and share it with your friends. Let's get some more fantastic information out there so all of us can grow the industry together. Cheers for now.